Hey, what's up, guys? In this video, we're going to be talking about tape. We're going to be going over the virtual tape machine plugin by Slate Digital. Tape is one of those things where it adds saturation, distortion, and compression. So when you think of a tape machine or the sound of tape, it's those three things. In recent years, tape has kind of become the holy grail of emulations. It's very difficult to emulate in a plugin because, like, where do you start? Do you emulate the tape head? Do you look at chemical sheets and try to emulate the oxide layer on the tape? Like, how do you go about it? Like the motor in it? Yeah, how do you, like, oh my god. There's a lot of moving parts literally in these machines. And yeah, they do offer like a sound. So yeah, we're gonna be going over it. So yeah, you press play and the thing spins. Okay, we have that. So I'm just gonna hide that because it makes me dizzy. I like looking at things like this. So how you would use a tape machine is you have to set the input to near zero because you're dealing with noise, and then you bring the output down to you compensate the output. So there's actually a link button to kind of do that for you. As you increase the input, it'll decrease the output, assuming you're at Unity. And that's a good way to kind of drive and kind of slam the tape while not raising the volume. It's kind of like gain matching. Give you an example of that. And without it, you can just kind of boost it. And then, you'll be over, your level and you'd have to like bring it down again. So that's a cool way on how that works. And that's how a lot of these old machines kind of worked. You'd take two hands because you have two hands, and then you'd move it and kind of like do that and just compensate or whatever. Yeah, it's fun. So one of the things that you would have to worry about with tape is you'd have to calibrate it, and it would be low or high biased. This kind of does it for you. It's recommended that you leave it at normal. But if you want the low end to distort before the high end, if you want like a fatter sound, then you have it set to low. If you want the high end to start distorting and becoming more warmish, then you'd have it set to high. With normal, it kind of everything is more uniform. It distorts, or not distorts, it saturates and gives like a presence across all frequencies. So we'll just leave it at that. Tape speed. Tape speed is one of those things. So how this works is, well, it's tape speed, tape type, and the machine type. These three combinations, different combinations, will contribute to your sound. And at a higher tape speed, you get less noise and more detail because you have more of the tape whizzing by at 30 IPS compared to 50 IPS. It slows down, so you lose a bit of detail. But that's not all bad. With 15 IPS, you focus more on the low end. The 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 tape speed of 15 IPS, it has a higher noise floor, but the response is less linear, and you'll kind of notice that there's a lot more low end to it. And yeah, again, it's a combination of all three of these, and maybe even the bias too. And that is totally up to you. So for like, I don't know, basses or drums or something, where there's a lot of high end, it's kind of harsh. You want to bring that tape speed down. It'll beef up the low end, and it'll sound fun. So for the machine type and the tape type, the option on the bottom is more of a modern, clean option. So I'm totally blanking out on what these are based on. The top tape, 16 track, 2-inch, is and one from a tape machine from 1970 something, and the half-inch is more modern. This sounds a bit more cleaner, but if you're going for an aggressive sound and you want to kind of drive it, then you can use the old school option, and that'll contribute to your sound. It's really kind of subjective. Um, the the 2-inch 16 track tape machine, it is more fat and punchy. It's a little bit more thicker. The half-inch 2-track, it's it has a different tape head. So think of it as like different tape heads. It's not different tape. It's like the actual machine and the circuitry and the input and output. It has more of a nicer low end, and so keep that in mind. The Fg9 tape type is a more modern tape type with a lot more headroom. The 456 is an old school kind of tape. The Fg9 has a thicker layer of oxide on it, so you can really, really like pummel it, and it'll still sound awesome. Um, it just these two tape types have a different response to saturation and what's being driven into it. The Fg9 has better low end. So, there's a theme here. So like if you use the Fg9 with a tape speed of 15 IPS, you will get that low end that you're just like, oh my God, I'm about to win a Grammy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, there's no wrong choice. And depending on what you're putting into it and your input and your output, your gain or your levels, you'll get a different kind of uh, effect on your audio. So yeah, and distortion or not saturation will occur sooner on the FG456 than the Fg9. So yeah, tape type. Yeah. So we're gonna drop into our settings. Yeah, we also have a bypass on bypass, and the VU meters go off, which is cool. So we have our settings here. Tapes have noise, and there's a few tricks to achieve some noise reduction. But since this is a digital plugin, we can take out the noise completely, basically, to negative 80 dB to get rid of all that noise. If you want the noise and that's the sound you're looking for, you just have it set to 0 dB. Perfect. So wow and flutter. Wow and flutter, it's basically pitch modulation. It's, these things are spinning around like crazy, and they don't sometimes, depending, like machinery, it's not predictable. It like kind of speeds up or slows down, and that's wow, and that's very slow. But flutter is very fast, so there's a bit of modulation, and that can contribute to the sound of tape. So say if you have like wow flutter to 100%, you know you might be working with a tape machine that might need to be serviced, kind of, and you can have absolutely no wow and flutter if that's your thing. Uh, you're not going to ruin anything by having wow and flutter. If it sounds good to you, use it. Bass alignment. This is basically bass boost. If you are, if you have a low IPS speed and you really like what's going on, it's thick, but there's a little bit too much bass on it, you just bring the bass alignment down and you are good to go. Or, if you are using, say, like like the ye olde tape machine, it accentuates more the mid and high end, and you have a high IPS speed, and you want to get that bass back in, you can go into settings and boost the bass a tiny bit. So that is that. I'm not going to get into calibration levels because, I might, let me know, and I might do that in a later video. Yeah. Hiss auto mute. So when there's nothing playing, the hiss will mute itself automatically. And you can play around with the VU ballistics, which is this thing. If you want to have a different kind of VU meter system, it's all up to you. So yeah, basic workflow would be, yeah, just bring the input. If you want to get something sounding kind of like tape, you basically put it on and forget it. Like there's an immediate effect as soon as you put this plugin on, and that's the nature of tape. You're just like printing it to tape and then recording it from tape, and that's been done like countless times. Just printing it to tape and getting that tape sound. And what that does is, again, tape adds a little bit of compression, and that could be like the thing that makes your mix go from pretty good to really good, or it makes recording amazing to incredible. Like, we're rich. We're gonna be able to eat lobster tail every day. So yeah, basic workflow is just drop it on. And I have these drums, and I wanna drive these drums. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to increase until it bites. And what I mean by bites is when we got it going over zero dB. But that's not bad for tape because tape has a bit of headroom, and it doesn't clip like digital stuff does. It just gently folds it. If you run this through an oscilloscope, you can see it kind of folds it down in a pleasing way that, well, it looks pleasing and it sounds pleasing. Right? So that little red light doesn't necessarily mean that we're clipping, but it's just like, hey, there's the tape machine is being, you're starting to run it into the ground, which we want. I'm actually going to unlink. I'm going to boost the output a little bit. And I can bypass and unbypass. I'm going to maybe experiment with the bias, bring it down. So I want that low end to be thick. I'm going to set it to, let's see, 15 IPS. You notice the mid range and the high end goes away when we go to 15 IPS. That's because less detail is being able to be stored to that tape as it's moving slower. Like that sounds quote unquote warm to me. Try a different tape type, maybe something a bit more old school. And that, you hear that distorts quicker because it has less headroom. So if I really want to be aggressive with it, I'd use the 456 tape type. I'll give the half inch. That's what was going on. The bass alignment was a little bit off. Oops. So if you listen, you can hear a little bit of compression. It's just like a boomy, thicker, fatter sound, and this is just on a single bus. And you'd have maybe this on your master bus, have it just gently have your master just gently pushing this, and you'll get like just an overall tone and balance as you switch between. I'd hope you use normal for like a whole track, but change the tape speed. It acts as like kind of an EQ, but it's a tape kind of thing. Change your tape type and your machine type, and you're good to go. Anyway, it's been about 15 minutes. I've rambled on enough. Yeah, check it out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care and have a good one.